This is the Sony ZV-E10, and I'm gonna make the argument that depending on your use case, this might actually be, for the money, the perfect YouTubing camera. To try and illustrate why, I'm gonna put it up against Sony's newest offering, and my God, what a nice camera, the $2,500 Sony A74. Obviously, if money was no object, you're gonna go with this little marvel of technology. But in reality, when you're shooting in a totally controlled environment like this, I control the lighting, the camera's on a tripod, almost all of the things that are better about this very expensive camera kind of don't really matter. You can't make much use of 5-axis image stabilization when the camera's on a tripod. You don't need 14 customizable buttons and 3 different control wheels if you're not switching the settings around every 8 seconds. Outside of the studio, I'm a race car photographer, and I'm changing the settings on my camera for pretty much every single shot. So this big boy makes way more sense out there because it has way more buttons and dials right where my thumbs are, so I can change all the settings without taking my eye off the viewfinder. But in here, in the studio, this camera's just gonna sit on a tripod and produce an image that's almost indistinguishable from this one. The ZV-E10 is not a full frame camera. It comes with an APS-C sensor. That'll affect the amount of bokeh you get in the background of the shot, the extent to which the background is out of focus. I'm gonna show a bunch of side-by-sides in a minute, but, and this is a big but, lenses for APS-C cameras are literally like 1/3 of the cost of full frame lenses. Look at this, $1,000 for 3 lenses. This one lens costs more than that, and it's a third-party lens. This is a Sigma lens. And if you venture into the G-Master telephoto zooms, you're gonna be paying close to $3,000 for glass for full frame cameras. So with the ZV-E10, you can afford to spring for like the 50mm f1.4 lens rather than the f1.8 that I'm using for the shot that you see now to produce a similar background that you get with the full frame sensor. If those numbers don't mean anything to you, it just means that the smaller the f number goes on a lens you buy, the narrower the plane of focus is, meaning the background will be more out of focus. f1.4, the background is more out of focus than f1.8 or f2.8. And also, the smaller the f number, the price goes up. You can also get more background blur simply by moving your body closer to the camera in relation to the background. Take a look at the out of focus lights behind me. I move closer, bokeh gets fatter. I move further away, bokeh gets skinnier. Magic. So right away, you can see how much smaller the ZV-E10 is. I mean, already just switching from DSLRs to mirrorless cameras, everything was lighter and smaller. I used to shoot with a Nikon D850 and that thing was just enormous. It weighed like 4 pounds. But this camera is super streamlined. You'll notice the top is basically flat. It's because there's no viewfinder. And the one wheel they did give us is flush across the top. For YouTube, and I can't say I look through the viewfinder of a camera very often, but if I'm out taking pictures with this, it's a little weird for me. Maybe if you're coming from an iPhone though, that's natural. It's normal. That's not to say that this thing can't take good pictures. It can. It's got the same object tracking and eyeball autofocus as the full frame cameras. Combine those with a 24 megapixel sensor and you can take professional photos with this camera. I mean, look at this cheeseburger. Put that thing on a fucking billboard, man. What? Hey, I just got a subscriber. What a good reminder, subscribe to the channel. Battery life is a thing. The battery on this camera is indeed a bit smaller than the one on the full frame boys. But Sony lets you charge the camera while it's in operation. So something like this little backup battery plugged in with a USB-C cable will make it so that you'll run out of card space way before you'd ever run out of battery. This camera has an HDMI out for monitoring. I'd rather it be a full-size HDMI than this little micro HDMI that it gives you, but I get it, they're trying to make everything small and compact and it probably just didn't fit. It's real handy to have a screen set up so that you can see if something's gone wrong while you're in the middle of shooting, if your card runs out of space or if your camera stops recording for any reason, rather than finding out later in the edit that you have to go back and redo a bunch of stuff. For some reason, my A7S III camera, the camera I'm using to record this now, keeps seeing this microphone or some part of it as a face, and it'll lock on focus to the mic instead of my face, and I'll just be ever so slightly out of focus. But if I have a monitor set up, I can see that happening. That's why I have this little piece of black gaff tape over this nut. For this video, I'm just using a boom mic instead. Anyway, I'm talking too much. It's time to show, not tell. Let's put this on a tripod. Behold, my studio shot through the Sony ZV-E10. I'm sure the colors are slightly different, but they're not bad. And who's to say these colors aren't closer to the true colors than what the A7S III was showing a minute ago? I have the A7 IV on a tripod right next to this camera so that I can switch back and forth between the two and you can really see the difference. This shot with this lens and camera together costs about $950 to produce. And this very similar shot with the lens and camera together costs about $3,500 to produce. And that's before all these lights. Those ones back there are blue. My point is, if your primary use for a camera is one that sits on a tripod and points at you while you talk about whatever thing, there are no shots that you can't get with the cheaper ZV-E10 that you can get with the far more expensive A7 IV. They both look awesome. Also, this comparison isn't exactly equal because of the weird realities of an APS-C sensor, but to get this same framing, the ZV-E10 is shooting at 50mm while the A7 IV is shooting at 85. That whole thing is subject for a completely different video video, but I'm gonna head over to the warehouse to set up some more comparisons. And actually, walking and talking can help illustrate another point. Image stabilization. This camera has no in-body image stabilization. It's got no IBIS. In the nicer cameras, the sensor's literally dancing around at all times to compensate for your movements. Here I am with no steady shot, no stabilization, walking around like a vlogger. I am keeping this as steady as I can. I'm taking careful little steady little steps. Since you save so much money on the camera, you can buy lenses that do have optical stabilization built into them. Check it out. This is taking this example to the extreme, but I set up this monitor so you can see through this camera here. This is a 70-200 G Master lens. Take a look at this impact driver over here. And this lens has a little switch on it, so I can just switch on and off the stabilization. And with holding with two hands, this is as steady as I can get it with no stabilization. If I just flick this switch, look at that. I mean, it's moving around, but it is so still compared to this here. So if you buy lenses that have stabilization in them, you can kind of override the fact that this camera doesn't have stabilization in it. It's solid, it's magical. This lens does cost about as much as the car I drove here in, but the stabilization is incredible. And that's kind of unrelated to the topic of this video. Anyway, I wanted to come to my warehouse to get a wider angle. My studio is really good for just that one talking headshot. Here we are back shooting through the ZV-E10 in a bigger environment. This is my shop. I'm shooting at 30mm f1.4 for this shot. This would be better if you have some kind of DIY channel that maybe you need to demonstrate something happening. I got a vise over here. I don't know what I'm gonna use it for, but same story as with my studio. Here's the same shot, or as similar as I could get it, through the A74. It's right next to the ZV-E10. Actually, I think you can see it just in the right side of the shot there. You might see a slight difference in the background blur, but I'm not even sure because the ZV-E10 is on a 1.4 lens and the A74 is on a 1.8 lens. That should be about the extent of the difference in the shot. The cheaper camera won't be any less sharp. It's shooting in 4K, and this camera is actually recording in higher than 4K. It's actually closer to 6K, and then super sampling the picture down to 4K. The A74 does the same thing, so the image quality should be somewhat similar. It is kind of dark in the background, so maybe you see some noise through the ZV-E10. I'll put these two pictures zoomed in side by side here, so you can see if one's slightly sharper than the other, but probably not. And really, since they have different lenses on them, that would account for some sort of the difference in the sharpness of the shot anyway. I'm gonna head on over to the green screen room. We'll see what that looks like through the two cameras. This room is actually a project that I've been planning for a while. It's this 360-degree green screen. All four walls in this room are green screen. I wanted to be able to make a podcast that I can do from anywhere with people on all sides of the table. This table may be a little too high. If you're planning on doing some green screening, I would wager that in this particular circumstance, there should be no discernible difference between the picture coming out of these two cameras at all. Since now the bokeh advantage is taken away from the nicer camera, the background is fake. It's whatever I'm making it right now. Maybe I'm on the beach. Am I in space? I don't know. I'm at the Old West. Who knows? But for green screen, you shoot around f4 or f5 anyway, so there is no bokeh. You kind of want to try to keep everything in focus. But anyway, green screen. That's green screen. That's my last example for this video. A74, ZV-E10. A74, ZV-E10. $3,500, $950. The perfect budget YouTubing camera. That's all.